Welcome back. You're watching All Angles, and it's day 2 of the DA's Federal Congress at Gallagher Estate in Midrand. Voting for the new leadership has concluded, and the final counts are coming in. Incumbent leader John Steenhuisen is up against a former Mayor Mpho. Helen Zille, on the other hand, is poised for re-election as Federal Council Chair. Senior reporter Aviwe Mtila is in Midrand alongside Siphamandla Goge and Tumelo Mututwane. But Aviwe Mtila, you are tracking some of the developments for us. We are expecting the final numbers to start filtering in, but I'm sure there is a rumor or a murmur here and there that you may have heard over the last few minutes or so that it might be John or maybe even Mpho that won this particular race. What are you hearing?
Well, colleague, if the support that's on the ground of this 2,000 delegates is anything to go by, it would suggest that John Steenhuisen is most likely going to retain his position as party leader. But of course, that will be delved upon. In fact, the results announced here, we understand, at around 2 o'clock, the latest time that I've heard. But I actually want to rope in someone that's part of the leadership of the Democratic Alliance. That's Aviwe Mtila, who is, of course, the chief whip of the party. And in fact, I want to zoom in of some of what John Steenhuisen has said around the bill that's in Parliament. Let's talk of the coalition bill and how the strategy is around that.
Yeah. Look, Aviwe, one of the things that we've seen, obviously, with the city of Tshwane, with the city of Ekurhuleni, and the city of Johannesburg, is the instability which has characterized a lot of our metro governments. And ultimately, when there is instability, what this does is that it actually affects the residents of that city, and it affects them adversely because it affects service delivery. So what we've done is, in the National Assembly, I'm introducing a raft of bills which would seek to stabilize coalition governments, not just for the metros or the local level, but stabilize coalition governments going forward. It doesn't mean that this bill, if passed, will fix necessarily the issues happening now, but we've also got to look forward to 2024. What happens in a scenario where we are at a national government coalition, where the ANC dips below 50%, which we believe it will, and now we have to form a coalition, but there's no legal framework whatsoever for that. But we also need to think about perhaps drawing a legal framework of how we're going to make sure that when coalition governments are formed, they actually stand the test of time. And budgets are passed, there's little to no disruptions, that coalition agreements are respected, that the citizens, ultimately the residents, are the ones who are benefiting from continuous governments. So that has been gazetted. 2 of the bills, it's obviously a raft of bills because we're seeking to amend the Municipal Structures Act, we're seeking to amend sections of the Constitution. So it's a raft of bills which we are introducing. 2 of them have already been gazetted for public comment.
But judging by what the party says, it suggests that even with the bills in place, you might not still see eye to eye with other political parties, given what we heard from the leader suggesting that at the heart of these coalition governments must be the DA values as well as DA members. I'm sure the other political parties that you'd want to govern with in coalitions won't accept that.
Look, I think it's important to separate the legislation from what our approach will be for in terms of coalition governments and entering into coalition governments. The legislation is important. It's important for all political parties, regardless of where they stand, regardless of whatever their political persuasion. Every single political party that is serious about representing the people of South Africa should actually be supporting these bills. As it comes to the issue around the DA's approach to coalition agreements and coalition governments, of course, we've got to look at the potential partners that we want to have in government. If our potential partners don't respect the rule of law, they don't respect competent and clean governments, and they respect cadre deployment, for instance, we can't work with people like that, particularly at a provincial and national level. There's too much of a chasm, and there's too much of a difference between us and some political parties, for instance, like the EFF, who are the antithesis of what we believe in. But ultimately, going into 2024, we can't have a laundry list of who we're going to work with, who we're not going to work with. We want to go there, we want to win as much as we can, and then once we've got all our votes, and once the votes are counted, then we can have a mature discussion with political parties about the future of the country and how we can best assist.
Let's quickly go through what the actual bills say. What are they looking at specifically?
So one of the things, for instance, that has been, the particular bills which have been gazetted are looking at, for instance, limiting motions of no confidence. Motions of no confidence are a very useful accountability tool, and we must never take them away. However, motions of no confidence, particularly at a local level, have been severely abused. They've been abused and been moved, just frivolously. And one of those things is that the motions of no confidence is effectively contribute to the instability. So what we're saying is that we're proposing that we limit motions of no confidence in the Speaker and in the Mayor to once a year, unless there are compelling reasons, legal reasons, compelling factual reasons as to why they ought to be removed from office. Some of the other proposals are around legal thresholds, around electoral thresholds, electoral thresholds, because we believe when we look at other coalition governments around the world which have worked and have worked well, we have seen that some of the core elements are that we have a situation where we have electoral thresholds. It is untenable that we have a situation where we have a mayor of a one-seat party in the city of Johannesburg. We have to have a serious conversation as political leaders in this country about how do we ensure that it is the people's representatives who are the ones who are governing, so that they may be held accountable. Because who's holding those people accountable? Who's going to be holding Al Jamar accountable? They have a one-seat party. They're a one-seat party, the city of Johannesburg. And there are other raft of possibilities that we are looking at, and including the formalization and the codifying of coalition agreements that are made public, so that the public can hold us accountable to what we agreed to. It cannot be that these coalition agreements are negotiated in backroom deals. No. Members of the public must know what we agreed to, must know what the terms of reference were, and must know exactly what it is that we seek to do. It's their governments at the end of the day, and we want to be able to play open cards. So we really hope that other political parties can receive this in the spirit that they intended, to stabilize coalition governments for the benefit of citizens.
And we're at a break, it seems now, and expecting the announcement, of course, of the leadership, I'm assuming, when we're back here. And you're suggesting that that's the leadership that will take you to the coalition government. I'll ask you tongue-in-cheek. Is it going to be John Steenhuisen or is it going to be Dr. Mpopala?
I have no idea, Aviwe. There's over 2,000 delegates that are here. They've already cast their vote. You'll remember voting opened at 6 and closed at 9 a.m. And so I'm pretty sure the votes have been counted. And the viewers don't have to wait that long anymore. We are likely to receive the results at 2 p.m. After the break, there will be awards, particularly to some of our members that we have lost between the last Congress, a lot of people that we've lost through COVID-19. And then we're going to have the announcement. And I'm sure the viewers don't have that much longer to wait.
All right. Thank you very much. Aviwe Mtila, the chief whip, of course, of the Democratic Alliance in Parliament, also the person that penned those bills that are already in Parliament for public opinion. Those bills talk to the advent of coalition government in the broader national scheme of things. As they say that, of course, since we had coalition government back in 2016, there's been a lot of problems, a lot of chopping and changing, where it seems like it's more catering for the actual political figures more than the services that are needed on the ground. So as we go to 2024 and the national elections there, the DA is projecting that the ANC is most likely going to dip below 50%. Some of the opinion polls suggesting that it will dip below 40%. So they say that as that happens, they're already preparing then for how the national scheme of things will look with coalition governments and how it should be officially legislated.